Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on immersive reality and the power of naming opportunities. My name is Bill Petruk, and I'm the founder and CEO of Funding Matters and iShare, and I'm joined by my colleague, James Murphy.
Hi,
James,
all.
hi, James. James has many years, I'm fortunate to say, decades of experience in health systems and healthcare. But to your benefit, James is here with us today to talk about something that is really near and dear to all of us, and that is stewardship. But today's session really builds on our experiences over all of those years and seeing how fundraising and philanthropy has changed. We've looked at how philanthropy, from the days of putting up a plaque to actually engaging with donors, was really driven by campaigns that were in 5, 10, 15, $20 million range. Some may have been $50 million campaigns. Today, organizations like yours, right across the country, are all looking at donations, not campaigns, from 5 million to 20 to 50 to 100 to $200 million. And I think that is a big part of the transformation that's been taking place. It ties in with a number of factors. One is the tremendous wealth transfer that's taken place. Secondly, is the wealth creation that's taken place. Thirdly, it's the ability of individuals to understand how they can be making a difference for their communities, for healthcare. And so what we're really looking at is the power of naming opportunities in terms of creating these as tremendous giving opportunities for your organizations, institutions. But let's have a starting point for all of this. There's a well-known Canadian. His name is Marshall McLuhan, and he was famous for coining the phrase, "The medium is the message." Well, the medium years ago for our campaigns in healthcare was, as you can see behind him, the telephone. It was the case for support, the written case for support. It was maybe direct mail. But today, the medium is technology. The medium is the internet. The medium is the message, but the user is the content. So when we start to look at immersive technology and how we immerse ourselves and our campaigns with our donors, we have to see how our donors immerse themselves within those campaigns. They are the user, they are the content, and the medium that we are using is the internet. How can we be shaping immersive realities for our donors to actually go and explore and immerse themselves to find out what it is that's being built before it's ever being built? This is the opportunity that you can take from your ideation stage and turn it into what's practical for them to actually see for themselves without just putting it in one dimension or two dimension. We can go to three dimensions. We can go to the fourth dimension of incorporating sounds with the sights. So how do we bring all of that together? And how do emerging technologies reshape the way that we give? We've seen how our campaigns that we're looking at building are all based around building new hospitals, new technologies, diagnostic imaging, cancer research, whatever, emergency rooms, urgent care, patients, in patient beds, whatever it happens to be. We are looking at how can we be incorporating those elements within the framework of doing something that has that virtual world immersive reality that ties in with this. How do we combine those elements of reality? How do we take that picture of our case for support, but bring it to life for our donors so that they don't have to necessarily leaf through 15 pages and find something that may be of interest? And we want to find new ways to be measuring interactions and connection. So that ties in with what we're looking at from immersive reality. Now, when we were developing these decks to actually share with individuals like yourself, I reached out to somebody who really knows giving and spends a lot of time in terms of research, and that's Dr. Russell James. Russell, when I first approached him about this, we were talking about it in terms of what motivates donors to go to higher levels of giving. What are the emotional connections that tie into it? And he continually would come back to the visualization. How can individuals visualize themselves within the framework of what it is that you're trying to raise the funds for? But Russell, back in 2020, undertook a research project not on the philanthropic level, but on the consumer behavior level. He approached a number of individuals around online apparel purchases. Now, like when Russell told me this and he shared the research with me, I was like, online purchases, online apparel purchases. He says, yeah. He says, the thing that I was looking at was, you know what, if we went in our research and showed somebody a static image, a static dress, a shirt, pants, whatever it may be, or an ensemble of some sort, how do people react to it? And then if we said, so we all know that too well in fundraising land. If we're trying to raise money and show a static image, and that is a lot of the images that are on your websites anyways. They're static images. They don't really go anywhere, but they're there as to try and tell your donor story, to take your donor on a journey. But then Russell said, we've got the static, we've got the two-dimensional, and then we start to look at how do people respond on the two dimensions. And we know with the two dimensions, so we have an architect who's actually building come up with a design for a brand new hospital. Sometimes, and we've heard the donors actually say, well, what does it look like on the other side? You're showing me, what view are you showing me? Well, we're showing you the southwest view. Well, what does the northeast view look like? And we're like, we really don't have that, but we can go back to the architect and ask them to actually come up with a northeast look or something along those lines as well. You know what? It's like I can't really wrap my head around this. But then when Russell said the ability to zoom and do a 360 rotational view of the artifact, whatever that article of clothing was going to be, people were starting to look at it differently. So they went from the static to the two-dimensional to the 360-degree zoom rotational. And they started to look at it and say, I'm more likely to make a buying decision around that. Now, we're in the world of not trying to compare our campaigns, whether it's an MRI machine, whether it's a patient bed, whether it's a brand new hospital or a wing, to an article of clothing, an online apparel purchase. That's night and day. But it was a starting point. And here's a guy who's really spent his career on the philanthropic financial planning side of things, but he's tying this back into something that could relate back in 2020. Okay, so that was Russell then, and I've followed up with him on this, and he's still spot on. He says, you know what, you've got to have that ability to give your donors something that they can actually sink themselves into, they can actually engage with and see for themselves wherever they are. Because the thing that we're dealing with, that this online is dealing with, is time. A person can find the time to go online. The donor cannot necessarily find the time to actually go and have a meeting on a field that's going to be developed into a brand new hospital. They may not necessarily, it may be months or years before they actually could find the time to actually come out, bring their family, bring everybody else, bring their advisors to actually get that sense of what it is that's going to be built. So we start to look at what now I'm looking at health system hospital campaigns as Gucci's and Versace's. These are the high level online purchases. These are organized, these are retailers, e-tailers that have really made the determination, whether it's these high-end brands or other high-end brands, that provide the opportunity for individuals to immerse themselves and actually browse and sample and get an experience and have an interaction because they may not be able to necessarily go and see what's in the vault or what's in the Gucci, but they may be able to actually have an interaction to learn about what is current, just like what is current from your perspective in the healthcare system is to look at what is it that you want to build? Why do you want to build it? Who do you want to build it for? Who do you want to serve? And how can you make it affordable? How can you create that affordability for them to understand that they can be giving in the most tax efficient ways to your organizations? So you are the Gucci's and you are the Versace's and you are the high-end brands of healthcare. You are the high-end brands delivering this to your constituents. And how easy is it for you and your team to actually be reaching out to hundreds of people at the same time, thousands of people at the same time? This is almost your way of cloning yourself to introduce what it is that you're hoping to do. And this applies not only to, you can actually be utilizing these opportunities to be engaging in doing feasibility studies, planning studies, test your messaging out, see what's resonating. Use this for presentations to service clubs and other corporations and other groups of individuals and families that can benefit and are very near and dear to your organization. And what you're trying to do is steward that relationship with them to the next level.
Well, I was chuckling when you were talking about this immersive experience and engagement earlier because I remember back in the 90s, there was a big concept that emerged called the experience economy. And about that time, we were showing a couple of CEOs around a field where a new hospital was going to be built. And we had architectural renderings and all that. But one of the CEOs, who happened to be a little mobility impaired, wanted to go out and see the site. So he had this big Cadillac limousine, and we're bouncing around, crossing the field in the back of this Cadillac limousine, saying, "Yeah, and here's going to be the surgical wing," and how things have progressed and changed. I mean, with this that was immersive reality, but not the kind we want to talk about today. I think with this, the real power of this tool is coming into that 3D space and looking at the hospital space. Architectural renderings, models, maquettes, all that doesn't really do it anymore. But most importantly, we're all looking for ways to personalize donor experiences, design it around their interests, just like Genesis cars. They're designed around you, I think is their tagline. That's what we're all really looking for when we work with donors and giving that emotional connection through storytelling, through visuals. Storytelling is great, but with the visuals brought in and these immersive features that are interactive, allows you to zoom, look at videos. We'll look at some of these tools a bit later in the presentation, hear testimonials. All of those kinds of things, I think, really finally get to the core of how we can bring donors into an experiential engagement and really accelerate their decision-making process, which is what we're looking for. Um, we can go to the next slide there. Yeah. So um, it, the ability to bring in a donor, a spouse, family members, advisors, all of this is possible now because you can host any number of people with these kinds of tools. So it allows the donor thinking about a gift, thinking about what they want the space to look like. Not that they've got an architectural decision, but they're going to have input. They're going to feel like they want to have ownership in this. And they might like a little more light coming through the roof as this graphic shows. Um, it really takes them into that conversation. It's not just a give and take. They're not focused on you anymore as the fundraiser, as the major gifts officer. They're really focused on the project. And this allows you to tailor that really instantly, make changes in real time if you want, and really support much more informed decisions. And you can make this available to them, after you've taken this through them live, you can also make the links available to them, their donors, their advisors, their families, etc. So I think that's the real power of this. It's real-time updates, getting away from written printed materials, which are static, which aren't interactive, which don't really get the job done. And with this immersive reality, you've got the power now, I think, to engage donors in a way that's, really actually pretty exciting.
Yeah, one of the things, James, that I love that Cadillac story. Just, I just had my visual of
Yeah.
bouncing around the field. One of the things about the 3D visuals, when we talk about simplifying complex plans, hospitals are complex entities,
Mm.
and you can take a patient room, you can take a designated area. I'll give you an example. One of our projects has a chapel, and the chapel, they decided, the architect, when they were designing the chapel, decided to have a chapel, and then within that chapel, decided to have a uh, family gathering area. And with so there was a sink and a microwave and dishwasher, and then they had the chapel. So when saw this, the institute saw this, they looked at it going, "Whoa, we're going to be having worship take place here. We're going to, be having a quiet space. Uh, why is it that we have a kitchenette in the chapel? Like, how did the architects come up with this idea?" So we start. So going back to the architect, well, that's a change order, or it's going to be, this is going to cost you, $30,000 for this change order. And then, well, we have a family that are interested in the chapel, but they're not interested in having, a kitchenette as part of that chapel. Well, that, so we were able to actually manipulate and just change and go back to the architects without that gargantuan cost. They had to do a change order for sure. They had to redo the plumbing, but being able to actually show the donor with the architects and the planner's approval, what is possible, they were able to understand that this is something that they would be happy with, and that would, it was $250,000 at the time. But start to look at it that way. Or you go into a diagnostic imaging, and Siemens would fly doctors out into an airplane hangar to actually show them what a diagnostic imaging with their new Siemens machines would be. But this is a great way to actually get the doctors and the specialists' feedback, the nurses' feedback, the other healthcare teams' feedback, so that at the end of the day, when you're showing something to your donor, and we've all been guilty of this and caught, where we've actually showed something to the donor, and the donor said, "Yeah, I really love it." And then it doesn't turn out like that. And so having the ability to make changes as changes are required without having to, being able to show this to donors. And then the last one was a donor who didn't like the exterior of a building. And he said, "Look, you're talking to me for about a $20 million donation, but I don't like the exterior of the look of that building." And then we were able to actually reskin it fairly quickly, and then say, "What do you think about this?" And but at the same time talking to the designers and the architects, and they were like, "Yeah, it's going to cost you more," but the fact was that the donor was happy, the changes were made, they had an opportunity to get that 360-degree Russell James viewpoint on things, and that's key to all of that. And to the other point of out of town international donors, look at your the grateful patients live all over the world. They spend time in different places of the world. For you to be able to reach out to them and provide them with something that allows them to actually be immersed in, and at the same time as you are, and engage and ask questions with AI, and to try to incorporate some of the elements into the large language models, the LLMs, that are in the back of your donor's mind, but they may not be asking you directly because it may not occur to them, but at their time, just like McLuhan says, the user is the content, the medium's the message, but the user, the donor, is the person who immerses themselves and wants to find out more information, and use this is a great way for them to be doing that. Sorry for just hogging all that time, James.
No, I think that point you make too. I mean, we live in a large country with a dispersed population, and many places that we work are centers of medical excellence. We do get international visitors, people from all over the world, and it facilitates so much more the ability to engage with those donors in real time, as opposed to trying to get them back on their private jet, come back to the hospital, or fly to them. It's just a very powerful way to engage them, I think. Um, Yeah, we talked about stewardship as well. The stewardship and naming opportunities that this gives rise to. You can obviously visualize the space, how that recognition is going to look, how it's going to show up. Um, Most importantly, once they're committed, once they're engaged, you can show them live updates on both on the campaign, on the building progress, new opportunities that might come up. So you've really got the ability now through the entire life cycle of that donor conversation to keep them engaged, to the project lifestyle and beyond, really, because there are always updates, there's changes, there's modifications later. But to me, this just addresses so well the ability to keep the conversation going with donors. It's not calling up, say, let's get a meeting, let's do this or that. Once they've seen this, they're happy to hop on a virtual reality tour for 15, 20 minutes to see updates, to hear how the project is going, and they're excited about that. So you can take all of those inconveniences away by using this tool.
I love the idea about live updates. And live updates, what that means is if you have a donor, you can actually post that donor family name on a specific area.
Yeah.
That is an update for all of your constituents, of all of your prospects, of the people that you want to be made aware of your campaign and the progress, because the progress and the update is really what kind of donations and who's coming on board. Do I know these people? Why do these
Hmm.
people make this donation? So it's that element that ties into it.
Yeah, that peer-to-peer influence. Um, yeah, I mean, continuing along that same line of thought with the real-time, recognition, you've got immersive tools beyond the virtual reality. You've got the ability to narrate. You've got the ability to look at branded environments that really brings your campaign to life. You've got the ability to walk through the space even while using narration at the same time. So, you can talk to them about the MRI department, you can talk to them about the reception area. But when you're really able to walk through that, it brings that to life in a way that I think is really next level. I think we've got the ability to have this slide do a little bit of movement as we walk through. Is that on this slide, Bill, or is that the
That,
next
that's
one?
that's yeah, that'll be next. But
That's the next one. Okay.
the idea about having a unified platform that shows how gifts are seen and remembered is really important because
Yeah.
people do want to see what their name looks like on a particular area. But also, uh, and I'm guilty of this, so I think I'm having a lot of confessionals today. But one of the things that I was embarrassingly involved with was naming a space twice. And we
Mm.
came in, we were working with the organization, and it was a great naming opportunity that the donor found for $300,000. And he wanted to do it because it was his birthday. But when we went back and sat down, and somebody on the campaign team said, I just had a conversation with somebody about that same naming opportunity. And it was never kind of recorded from that individual or myself. So it was, uh, we had two unhappy donors that we needed to find a solution for. And the ability to actually have that as a naming opportunity audit, and that has sort of always taught me whenever we go through this, what are the current naming opportunities, what has been taken, what are, and can we have it posted somewhere that we don't get tripped up on this. And so you're finding out some of my foibles of the
Mhm.
past.
Yeah, I think having that inventory, being able to refer to what that looks like in virtual reality, it's like, yeah, what we talked about that space. Let me go back and look what that is and what we're really talking about. It gives you the ability to keep that inventory clear and audit it regularly.
Yeah. And so what we're looking at is, the case for supports. We're going to take like how the virtual reality space and how people immerse themselves in these case for supports, how it increased donations, increased giving, increased participation. And that is one of the things that we're constantly challenged with is how do we increase the participation levels of our prospect pool? How do we engage other groups to actually understand what it is that we're doing to get them to start to look into this and apply this for themselves so that they can actually understand what's taking place, why it's taking place, who it's going to benefit, and how this can be, once again, afforded within the framework of the size and scope of the projects that you're undertaking. So the two-dimensional going into three-dimensional, when you start to look at that very flat, and when I say flat, I mean that when we were going out in 2 dimensions to actually take foam core and put it in my car and drive for half an hour, 3 hours to some to a destination, pull it out, and then you'd see that the corners were dog-eared, that you were looking for an easel. The easel that you brought had a wonky leg. You're looking at propping the image up on something and just talk about it while you're actually engaging in a pitch of some sort. But more importantly, what we start to look at on the 2 dimension is that no one really reads the 2 dimensional documents or the 1 dimensional documents. The case for supports, when you actually show up to do a feasibility or planning study or having a donor discussion, they really haven't gone through the case for support. But in 3 dimensions, they can actually immediately share this with, if you have a prospect, they can share it with their kids, they can share it with their grandkids, because their kids and their grandkids are probably from that gamer generation. They grew up or having an appreciation for things that are along those lines. And you can tell that if you can create something for the generations in their 70s and their 80s, they're online. These people are all online. They've got Insta accounts. They like TikTok. They post things about what they're doing. So they're engaged. This is an engaged group of people, and this is where technology is today. And we want to go where technology is going. So that is the objective of creating these immersive reality universes. So when James was talking about, what might this look like? Well, this is your case for support in one image. Here's your case for, here are all the naming opportunities. That's great. These are all beacons that anyone, if they click on any one of these, or they go to any of these areas, it'll take them directly to that spot. That is the immersive reality of taken from a floor plan, a blueprint. They can actually go over here and do a virtual walkthrough. You can actually use this as a wayfinding system that ties in with your naming opportunities, that showcases, what it is that you're raising funds for before ground is ever broken. Even if ground's broken, these are great opportunities to actually look at, how can donors be identifying their areas of interest, their philanthropy with these objectives. Then we go from that into directly, as if you were going to pick this Peter Pan view and go right to the main entrance and address Russell James' 360-degree view of what this space would be. I want to see what this looks like if I scoop around. There's the parking lot, and as I come back, hey, there's the naming opportunities all over again. I could just click on any one of those, stop there and click, or I can go right in to the entrance. I can go into the lobby, the reception area, and if I click on that, it'll take me right into that space. So just as if we've finished the 360-degree view, we've seen that the naming opportunities, we go right to the reception area. And if we look at the reception area, we're going to actually see for ourselves exactly what is there. And if we just click on, that aspect, we're going to have that description from your case for support. And we're going to have a video that will actually, in 40 seconds, articulate what is in that text. So the objective here is to actually have individuals to get a message from the CEO, a message from the board chair, a message from a physician that happens to want to get that point of what the space is all about. So again, this is a person's attention span of 30 to 40 seconds. And sometimes 30 to 40 seconds may feel like an eternity. But if we can actually, with imagery, cut through, illustrate, and here's the CEO talking about and welcoming to the new MRI scan room that will at some point be built. But people can actually see for themselves. It comes to the conclusion and illustrates what that really is meant to achieve. And that same naming opportunity, if it were named, can actually be illustrating the benefits associated with that type of a gift. And then we go into that future of philanthropy. You're investing hundreds of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into building new equipment, new spaces, new areas. And what you really want is to show your donors that the technology and the strategy that you are using to help raise the money for your campaigns is on par with the technology that you're looking at incorporating to their healthcare, their well-being. This becomes a legacy piece. This isn't a case for support that's got a 12-month to 24-month lifespan. This is a case for support, a digital immersive case for support that has a lifetime of naming opportunity, both virtually as well as physically. It ties in with your the auditing of your systems. It has all the naming opportunities where people can click on. They can actually see who the donors were. We can be incorporating the donor stories within that framework. So what you're really fostering here is how everyone is going digital already, but you're fostering within your organization, providing the tools for your team to actually be able to engage in broader conversations. There are a lot of these elements here that take a lot of staff time to actually coordinate. It's all in one spot. And the opportunity to be having these conversations, we learned this out of COVID, is that how do we collaborate with our stakeholders? How do we learned by doing it on Zoom. We learned by doing it on the other platforms. But the reality is now we can be bringing the metaverse and bringing the excitement of what it is that donors want to see themselves in a gamified format. And that type of innovation is in parallel to the innovation that you are hoping and working towards raising the funds for your institutions.
Um,
Yeah, James.
You know, when you look at some of the uses of this too, I mean, beyond the 3D tours, the virtual events, I think that the virtual events is a very important area too, because I was talking to somebody yesterday who's an event planner for fundraising, and oh my God, the level of detail, the stuff that goes into getting people into a room, how you coordinate things, all this can be done virtually. You can walk, prospective donors through some of these things when they can't attend in person. You still can have live events, of course, those are important. But I think this shortcuts some of that and allows you to really engage them on that level. You've got the ability to build microsites, 3D models into campaign websites, special kinds of designs for particular donors, particular classes of donors, and so on. To me, people are always struggling with stewardship and keeping up proper stewardship with donors. This allows you to design and send personalized links to donors that keep them abreast and aware of what's going on with their space or potentially space that they might be interested in naming. And that I want to focus on that personalization because every single thing that you design can be personalized to the donor. All good stewardship beyond certain levels obviously personalizes the communications with the donors. This allows you to continually do it and keep them engaged over time in a way that updates them, gives them the information in an easily digestible and easily accessible form, and really just takes the burden off. It makes it an enjoyable experience for them. And I think allows hospitals to really raise their level of stewardship beyond what's currently being done, preparing a report, this and that. You can have a surgical space, you can have a clinician come on talking about how that space is going to be used. And we're so grateful to have the Jones family gift to do this because it's going to allow us to do this and that. That's exciting stuff for donors.
Yeah, one of the things that on stewardship is the donors who have been supporting you in the past. This is a great way to top up the giving that they've made. And opportunities, whether it's a brand new build, a brand new piece of equipment, or an existing space within your organization, within the buildings that you've got. This is a tremendous opportunity for them to add on to that and actually create something that would be like new money for old road. You've got the
Mhm.
existing building, you've got so many different areas that have never been named that may be of interest. And this is part of collecting that information and being able to categorize it based on giving levels and looking at what might be attractive for an individual to start thinking themselves about making a gift. And so when we start to look at that, we can we know that if a donor writes a check, that's super. We know that if a donor transfers shares of a publicly traded company or makes the decision of appreciated assets from mutual funds, that's even better because they probably can give more if they rather than cash because now like people don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a checking account. But the other part is being able to engage your donors to understand the other ways that they can be giving, like registered investment, RSPs and RIFs, and how that can be incorporated as part of it. And that's part of the overall engagement piece around affordability. So not only are we showcasing what it is that you're going to build, what is there already, but more importantly, we're going to explain why these areas are important, why they continually need their support, but more, and then finally, showing the affordability, of a person actually transferring RSP assets, a gift, cash, or putting a bequest in their will. So one of those, various channels for them to think about with their advisors is also important for them to look at. So that's again another piece of the stewardship and the ability to actually, to McLuhan's point, I'm going to kind of wrap up with Marshall McLuhan. To McLuhan's point, that the medium is the message. So if you look at your website, that is kind of one of the areas where you think that people go to for information. The medium is really the internet, the ability for you to actually push out your marketing, push out your communications, and push out your stewardship to your donors so that they can see what it is that's in the works, who's been giving, how have they been supporting, how you're doing as an organization, what are the things that they might have an interest in terms of making these types of presentations. So that really ties in nicely with going back to having virtual events, whether you're going to be connecting with your donors or sitting down with your donors and having major or transformational or planned giving types of presentations that may benefit them and their families, and a great way to engage the entire family by just getting them all on the same page immersively, and they can see for themselves and you can get the feedback from that.
Yeah, I think, Bill, you've covered off a lot of these points pretty clearly. But to summarize it, really, you can basically reduce complexity to something that's very intuitive and accessible to people. You're no longer telling them; you're showing them. It's that personalization comes back to that. Tailor it to what you know to be donor interests, what you know to be their giving priorities. Allows you to bring in advisors, family members, others who may be remote, a lot easier to get them together. Um, the transparency aspect where it shows exactly how the funds are going to be used, where that donor recognition is going to take place. And again, that stewardship opportunity to show them the lasting kinds of value and impact that their gift is going to have. So to me, there's so many benefits to these kinds of tools, beyond what we've used traditionally as fundraisers. and the ability to open up conversations and really get donors excited and stimulate that buy side of the brain that Russell James talked about earlier. This kind of stuff, gets the juices flowing and gets people excited about things beyond just the conversations that you can have with them. Um, you've got the ability now to bring them into a different world and imagine what that world's going to look like and how they can have an impact on it.
And it's again, we're dealing with many donor groups that have accessibility issues.
Hmm.
Ability, whether it's you know piling into the caddy to go through the farm field to look at accessibility, or actually being able to provide that type of visualization, illustration, immersion digitally is the key. So I want to thank everybody for making time today. I hope that you have found today's session to be illustrative, imaginative. It's something that we've always thought, what a great way for fundraisers as a whole and to be engaging with donors. But we'd love to get your thoughts. There will be a survey that'll go out if you so choose to fill it in. That'd be greatly appreciated. It'll help us in how we shape our presentations in the future. But all in all, I greatly appreciate the investment that you've made today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. James,
Thanks to all of you for participating today, and I hope you're as excited about this as I am. So we look forward to hearing your feedback.
Bill, it's Mark Womack calling from Kincardine
hey,
Hospital
Mark.
Foundation. Just
Hi,
a
Mark.
question about turnaround times on the creation of a basic plan. What type of months or weeks are you looking at from conception to realization?
Great question, Mark. So not question mark, but question, comma, Mark. Uh, this is meant to be a joke, sorry. Uh, uh, so the way we look at it is this: assume today is day zero. And if you were able to provide us with a blueprint or a floor plan, and we were able to work with that floor plan with the designated areas of equipment, what's going to take place in those spaces. The keys to all of this are blueprints, naming opportunities. So if you were to look at what your naming opportunities are from your case for support, if you were to say that the patient rooms are going to be and we can create a very brief description of that, or the nurses stations, or uh, the physician's offices, or the lobby, or the reception, or whatever it happens to be. We'll be able to actually compile all of that with you. And then we would kind of work on a schedule of every week. We would meet for about 15 minutes to review with you exactly what it is that we've developed from taking your one-dimensional, two-dimensional floor plans, your blueprint, and actually turning it into a three-dimensional. And then we would then if you could, provide us with photos or interior design images that you have in mind, we can be incorporating that. Now, if the interior design images aren't in stone that you're going to be changing, we could change. But as long as we've got the framework of the rooms, the spaces, and everything else, that we would be able to build that out. So to answer your question, to have the blueprint turned into a 3D, turned into a visual appealing walkthrough, a wayfinding system, a beacon we'll have beacons for all the different naming opportunities that exist. So we would have the price points with the descriptions. We would also be incorporating, as you saw, that CEO, but we would have we would have a virtual philanthropic officer, VPO, and that person would be you or somebody at the hospital, and that would be that individual that would help answer any of the questions that donors may have. They actually redirect them back to you for further clarification and discussion. So from going from day zero today, we would say by the time we have it built out and tested, so we want to have it beta tested, alpha tested, and beta tested, it would be approximately, and I'm going to say at the outset, um, not not at the soonest, but at the outset, is about 4 months. So the idea would be that we would build every step of the way every week. And by the third month, we would be able to actually show you something that we collectively can be doing some beta testing with amongst yourself, amongst your team, at the hospital, and with the foundation, with a potential several different donors, to actually make sure that there aren't any bugs in the system, and that we would have the built-in calculations around the ideal forms of giving. So let's just say you're going to be naming something for $100,000. The individual, we would have it preset for $100,000. It would be Ontario. It would be the tax brackets that would apply, and then from those tax brackets, they can actually select their pledge period. So if 100,000, if they wanted to do over 5, it would be 20,000 a year. They would actually show what a $20,000 cash donation, check donation would cost, and what an appreciated asset donation might cost them from the different asset sources that they would have. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Mark?
thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Anybody else? Well, if you have any other questions and you'd like to follow up with James or myself or our team, please feel free. Look forward to talking to you and sharing with you some of the other initiatives that we're undertaking. And it's very exciting because this is, as a fundraiser, this is something that, uh, logging, I'm going to tell you, hundreds of thousands of miles in airplanes and cars and trains, and it's like a John Candy movie. It's like logging all those miles to go and visit those many, many, many donors was always rewarding. But it kept in the back of my mind that technology will get to the point where, and it has, that we have smartphones, we have 5G, now we're going faster. We have graphics capabilities like never before, faster graphics capabilities. We've got the ability to have a small microchip processors that are in our phones that actually bring these things to life, that you don't need goggles. You just can have it then and there wherever you are, and be able to showcase this to donors. Even if you don't have internet, it's the beauty is that we can actually load it onto a device that you can showcase. Last but not least is, on your smart devices, you can have the motion mode. So you can actually have it on your smart device wherever you are and feel like you're walking around the lobby. Feel like you're walking from the entrance into the hallway, from the hallway into, and just driven by the motion engagement features of our platform. So it's all about, it's taking the whole gaming world and then bringing it into something that we can apply to ourselves as fundraisers. So I greatly appreciate everyone's time, your thoughts, your questions. Again, James, I appreciate your insights on this as well. And I wish everybody good fortunes in your fundraising as well. So thanks ever so much.